Hello, all. Welcome to today's session on our custom communications in Teams. I'm Amanda Pritchard. If you haven't attended one of our sessions before, I work in the Office of Information Technology, and it is a joy and a delight to be able to host these sessions and to be able to teach technology to campus. If you haven't picked up on our theme today, it is Rosie the Riveter, who is a historic feminist icon that we thought was just a great representation for today's session. The session today talks a lot about how Teams has evolved over these past 2 years. It's been called into a lot more action than what it was first designed for. And just like we have had to evolve in how we host meetings and events and kind of connect with one another, Teams has constantly evolved with us and has released new information as days go on. So we wanted to kind of highlight the fact that together we can do it. We can do IT, even though that maybe wasn't what you first signed up for in your job. You've been enlisted, you've been recruited just by nature of the environment by which we live now. And we want today's session to be able to highlight that for you so that you can feel empowered and encouraged to use these new tools, because we are able to do this together and we are stronger together. All right, we've got a heavy agenda today because, like I said, Teams keeps on growing and evolving with us. So I want to go ahead and pull up the agenda and just go over a few of those items today. We're going to talk a little bit about co-organizers in Teams. This has been something, a long-awaited feature. And if you've attended my sessions, you know we like to have a little bit of interaction. So I'm curious from our audience who's attending today live, if you will use the raised hand feature. I'm going to ask you a question, so get your little clicker finger ready, okay? Ready? Ready. Have you ever hosted a meeting in Teams and wish you had a little extra help behind the scenes? Why don't you raise your hand if you've hosted a meeting and kind of wish you had a little extra help? Like we all need that additional support for things to run and to run well. So I'm seeing only okay, it's going up a little bit. It was a light handful and I was a little worried. I need all the extra help I can get for every aspect of my life. So I see about 15 hands up now. That's awesome. Y'all can lower your hands, or event team behind the scenes, if y'all want to help with the lowering of hands, that'd be great. Yeah, so co-organizers is going to allow you that ability to have that extra assistance kind of behind the scenes to help run some things in a Teams meeting, so you don't have to have that pressure of doing it all. The Q&A app, okay, we're going to do another raised hand option here. Raise your hand if you've hosted or worked kind of on the back end of a live event, a Teams live event. I know that one's not as common for everyone, but I do know people that have been running and using those live events. Okay, I'm just checking. All right, okay, so just a handful. So if you have, thank y'all can lower your hands now. If you have done a live event, then you should be really familiar that there's an external chat that goes to the audience, and then there's an internal chat where just people kind of behind the scenes, behind that closed curtain, can talk to each other. So if something's going on right now, we are having an issue behind the scene, but I know my team is on it, and so we can use that little chat just to say, hey, can you fix this real quick? Can you update this? And they're on it, they're handling it. So that Q&A app also now can be inserted into a Teams meeting, so you can have some of those private conversations. Custom streaming, if you haven't done that before, you can get your event, your Teams meeting now, or Teams webinar, and you're able to stream that out to your social channels. whether that's YouTube or Instagram Live or whatever your platform of choice, however you want to reach more people, but you're able to use a special stream key and share that out to your audience. And then super exciting, if you have been out and about on campus and you need to get a hold of your team really quick and give them an update, there's a new mobile option in Teams where you can just push to talk and send out a kind of a walkie-talkie message. So you just push to talk and it sends out that alert to everyone. And then we've got the breakout rooms. We had a lot of requests for this too. External guest, and so somebody outside the university before, if they were in a breakout room, they just kind of sat in the main lobby with you. It's a little awkward. So if you had an external guest, they couldn't actually break out and go to their own room with everybody else. But there's some ways to manage that, and then to be able to pull attendance from those individual breakout rooms. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our custom viewing experience. Okay, this is another raise your hand opportunity. Raise your hand. There's multiple ways to present in Teams. If you didn't know, raise your hand if you have used either the standout, the side-by-side, or that reporter mode to present content in Teams. Let me see who's using those tools, because there's some of my favorite. I only see 3 hands. Y'all. And nobody? So that might be good, because if there's only a few of you using it, perhaps the rest of you do not even know it exists. Thank you so much. You're able to lower those hands. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about those, because if you've been in Teams meeting enough, you know the layout by now, you know what it looks and feels like. So now you're going to be able to kind of adjust that. And if you've ever wanted to be a newscast reporter, Teams will make your dream come true, y'all. So get excited, get revved up. We're going to wrap up today's sessions with any questions and, of course, a survey so you can let us know how we did, what you want to see in the future, and we'll be able to make adjustments to make sure that this experience is customized to what your needs are to enhance your expertise at UT Dallas. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide real quick. Okay, I wanted to let everybody know any of the information that we're sharing today, we like to demonstrate that to you visually first. I am a visual learner. I love being able to look at things and to be able to see how it works. That's how I understand it. But we understand that there's multiple ways of learning. Some of you are here just to listen and to be able to hear through that auditory input. We also want to have this in written form for you. So we have, Denison's going to post in just a minute in our chat. He may have already. He's going to post a couple of links so that you are able to get any of the articles, and it's going to have a step-by-step guide with pictures of how to implement any of these changes, how to utilize these tools so that you can easily follow along. Okay, we'll go ahead and go next. Okay. We always get asked, where do we get a copy of this recording? How can you watch it again? Sometimes doing it once isn't enough. I know I learned through repetitive action as well. It takes me a couple of tries to kind of get on my main game here. So if you want to follow along and any future updates, get any releases as they come out, we also release kind of quick videos. So just like a 1 to 5 minute synopsis of a particular tool. You're able to follow along on YouTube. And when you subscribe, what that does is it tells our leadership that these sessions are valuable to our staff at UT Dallas. It shows them that people are invested and interested in learning and gaining these technical skills. And I will say, I understand that technology is not always engaging, but we will do our best to make it as thematic and fun for you so that you are able to get these new materials and be able to really absorb them and enjoy the experience of learning. That is absolutely our goal with all of the sessions. So if you want to catch this recording later, if you want to subscribe and just kind of let us know that you find these valuable and that it's an important part of your career, you can subscribe to our channel, and that will also get you notifications of any updates. Next. Coral, do you mind moving to the next slide, please? Oh, that's right. You did good. You did good. Go back. I told her, I was like, I always forget, y'all. This is, if you know my saying, I have the attention span of a goldfish. I told her, I was like, hang on to that slide because it's my last one and I'm going to forget it's my last one. So just ignore me when I say next. And she did great. So sorry, that was my last slide. So we're going to actually transition into our session. And I wanted to go ahead, I'm going to share my screen. So it's going to look a little bit funny here in just a second. So I know that, so just bear with me. But one of the first things that we wanted to be able to cover is setting up that co-organizer option in your Teams meeting. So in order for me to show that, I'm going to go ahead and show my screen, and it's going to show just those of us that are on the meeting today. So 1 second, I'll get that pulled up. We'll get duplicated. Y'all jumped off to another screen, but I'm bringing you back. Okay, you're with me now. Fantastic. So this is our webinar meeting that we're doing live right now. And you'll be able to see a ton of icons on the top. Some you might not be familiar with. Some might be standard issue that you are familiar with. What we're going to be looking at right now is we're going to look at, eventually we'll look at apps, but for right now, we're going to look under the more options. I am the meeting organizer, so you're not going to see the same options if you click on yours right now. And Dennison, I almost forgot. I do want to set this caveat that what we are demoing today, all of this information is under public preview. So you must be on public preview to see that. I'll pull a recording here in a second and I'll post that in the chat. If you don't know what public preview is, it's okay. Just know that yours is going to look a little different than mine. If you're not on public preview is what Microsoft allows us kind of that sneak peek access into some things that they're testing. All of this stuff is in public preview. So you have to get the sneak peek in order to see what we're seeing. Okay, so I'm going to go into that more. And meeting options, that's what we're looking for. Co-organizers is a new release. It's a little bit tricky, okay? Hear me say, you must be in the meeting. The meeting must be ongoing, opened up, running for you to add a co-organizer. I know that's not really ideal. We joined this meeting a bit early. You can see by the timer at the top left that I'm sharing, we joined it early so we could get everybody in the right spot, everybody at the right level. So if you've not used meeting options, you have the ability to set everything. Raise your hand. Did you notice there was a lobby in today's session? Did you notice you got sent to the lobby and had to wait? We had elevator music for you, so if you didn't notice, it's okay. That's great. A few of you noticed that you had to wait. Y'all were the early birds, so fantastic. We had your little elevator music. You could wait in the lobby until we were ready. If you ever need to start a meeting and you're not ready to let everybody in, you can set this lobby and you can select who needs to come to the meeting first, who needs that early access pass. But this is also where you find that option for co-organizers. So you can see I've got a couple people on my team here as co-organizers. They're able to help me on that back end by sharing screen, pulling some information for me and getting it sent out there. It just gives them, and they're able to change these options too. So if at one point I do need to have you all turn your cameras on, I don't have to stop what I'm doing, look for the button on my Teams and navigate down to it. I can still be looking at you and just say, hey, if we need don't do it. If we need people's camera on, then Coral would be able to go and navigate there and make that change for me. It's great having that extra set of hands kind of behind the scene. And then you can also specify who you want as your presenter, and you'll see right now right? You can't turn your mic on. I know you can't turn camera on right now because we're recording, but at the end, if we have time, we'll enable that so we can all just kind of say hi. You also have the option of changing your chat. So if you want it just for in the meeting, if you want it for forever and always, then you can also change those options. And so that is just where you add those co-organizers. It's great because some of these other apps that we're going to be showing you, like the custom streaming, the Q&A, those apps, the co-organizer can help manage as well as polls. So if you need that extra help behind the scenes, co-organizers are the way to go. It's a great way to have those extra hands and have that backup. Another important point I want to point out about co-organizers, this is the sad part. I don't like to think of this, but we do have a lot of people shuffling in and out of the university now. So if somebody is leaving, they can assign a co-organizer for those immediate meetings that might occur right after they leave, just so that you could change that meeting date, time, or general information, add more people to it, and they could help manage that even though they might be leaving and going somewhere else. So it's a great backup too. Let's say if I had the session stay and I was suddenly sick, Dennison or somebody else from the team could take over instantly because they would have had that access. So something to think about. Dennison, if you are ready, I think the next thing, since I already gave a little preview of some of those apps up top, I'm going to turn it over to you to go over the Q&A app that we can add on to our meetings.
Of course. Thank you so much, Amanda. So I'm going to go ahead and start on the Q&A app, like you said. And first things first, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that way you guys can see exactly what's going on and what I'm going to present to you guys. So the cool thing about what I'm going to show you right now is I'm going to actually join into this meeting. So I'm talking about the Q&A app. So, and what I really mean by Q&A, it's really more along the lines of a module within Teams that Teams has just released. So they're apps, but they're all still within Teams. It's not something that you really have to fully add. You just add it to the meeting. So first things first, I'm going to tell you how to get to the Q&A app. So once you're in a Teams meeting, so you have to do this when you're in a Teams meeting. There's not really a way, even though I should say when you're outside of a normal Teams meeting, you can kind of go into these little pluses and minuses, and you can usually add different tabs and stuff. But the Q&A application is actually something that is completely different. So it actually needs to be added inside of the team itself. Or really not team, sorry, inside of the actual meeting itself. So once you're here, you want to go ahead and go over to apps. You'll see all sorts of different cool looking apps, but the one that we're looking for is this Q&A one. So once you actually have your Q&A app, you're gonna have to wait a couple seconds. All of these kind of take a little while for them to load, but once they're there, they're there. It'll present you with this screen, which is what you see right here. And just to reiterate too, like what Amanda said before, this is in public preview. So if you're going through and you're trying to set this up and you don't see the Q&A app at the first point, make sure that you're in public preview, because then you'll be able to see this. But once we're in the application, it's going to give you some settings. Now, all of these settings, except for one of them, is editable even while you start. So I'm actually going to start by just going ahead and keeping this bottom one here open. So essentially each of these settings is kind of like how you want the Q&A to work properly. As you can see, there's actually two different types. So there's a question, and then you can also have it just to where you can have something as like a conversation starter that you can have this app manage and go through. So if we hit save, what's going to happen, it's going to go ahead and create the tab, and it's going to go ahead and create the process for any of the attendees who are inside of that meeting to be able to use this application. So this is the part that Amanda kind of alluded to earlier, where she said if you've ever done any sort of live events, it's very similar to that, to where there's a Q&A section on the back end there's a Q&A section to where any users who want to ask a question or communicates in some form or fashion, you can do it directly through there. So this is just the same, a very similar concept. It's just a little bit tweaked for Teams meetings to make it a little bit more interactive. So one of the big differences, as you can see here, is that it's just a regular old kind of spot where you can have people asking just specific questions rather than going into, say, a chat or a conversation like that and doing that. But you can, as I alluded to earlier, there's a spot where it says start discussion. So this is the portion that's a little bit different too, is that it's not just for your questions, but you can also make it to where you can give maybe even broader or bigger questions to where you can kind of start a thread going within this Q&A. So now one other thing that I want to go to is that setting that I talked about. So like I said, all of these settings are things that you can change, but the only one that you can't change. So if I were to start this one, as you can see, it actually gives you another one where it says you can't turn it off once you've turned it on. And the big reason for this is that it makes a big UI change and also the way that users or your audience members are actually going to be interacting with this application. So the big change here is now that everything that happens in this Q&A section is going to be curated by your organizers and your co-organizers as well as your presenters. But any audience members or attendees in this case will see the one that we saw just before, which is essentially just the ask question, and then that's all they get. So what happens is if there's a new user who who jumps into the meeting, right, and they go ahead and ask a question, inside of that meeting, they're able to, inside of this meeting, they're actually able to ask that question. As you can see, a user just popped up here. So they can ask a question, and I'm going to show you exactly what happens with their question. It's first going to pop into this review spot. So this user is just going to ask a question. Don't mind the keys, it's just little gremlins in the background. So they're gonna ask their question, right? And once the question appears, hopefully it appears, but what normally happens is the question will appear here, and then your actual presenters themselves are actually going to, oh, I forgot, this is actually attendee is actually a presenter, so I can change a little bit. So that is another thing to keep in mind. When it comes to your Q&A, if you want to make sure that everyone, that you have this curated experience, you want to make sure that all of your attendees, your actual attendees, are actual attendees in Teams. Easiest way to do that is actually just going to say people. I'm actually going to do this right now for this one user, and you can actually demote them. Or if you actually have them as a co-presenter or even a co-organizer, you want to do that through the actual meeting settings or meeting options. So this actually user is actually, I think I have a co-organizer currently for just testing and stuff like that. So I just remove them. So we're going to actually go back to here, and I should be able to actually demote them now, or not yet. So there are some changes that happen here. But essentially what happens while you're, oh yeah, I need to go ahead and hit save. That's my big change there. So bear with me for just a moment, and now we've got it. So now I'm going to actually go to my user here. I'm going to actually demote them, so I'll make them attendee. So now they're an actual attendee in this meeting. And so now they can ask, a question of, like, I don't know. So they just ask some sort of question. And so now what we can do is we can go back over to our Q&A application. And as I said, you'll first actually get and there's still some issues there. But essentially what will happen is you'll get the question that'll pop in on the review side. You'll be able to curate it and determine if you want it to go into the published, which is right here, or if you want it to go into the dismissed portion. If you move a question over to dismissed, it can always be restored and it'll always go back into review tab. If you move something to published, it can't be removed out of the published tab and moved back into review tab. So once something has been published, it's free for everybody to see. But you can delete the comment or conversation if need be. So that is something to keep in mind as well. But this is actually some of the coolest things that you can do with that Q&A application. I'm just explaining one of the sides, but there are multiple ways and multiple sides that you can do inside of this application to make your meetings far more interactive than they ever have been before. And that's probably one of my favorite things I like about the Q&A application, is that it gives you so many other opportunities to be able to interact with your users in 5 or 6 different ways. And what that actually does is that brings me into the next actual portion that I'm going to actually jump into. But I guess I should ask, Amanda, do you see any questions that we have, just in case there are any questions before I move on to my next topic?
I don't see any questions, but because this was like a lot of new information, I thought it'd be fun if we just do a quick poll, because what would a university be like if we didn't quiz everybody on their knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and launch just a quick poll. This is another thing that you are able to do in webinars that kind of makes it fun. It should, depending on how you have your screen and what you're viewing at this moment, it should pop up on screen. And if not, if you navigate to the chat, you'll be able to see the questions there in the chat. But the question that we were going to ask, and you can select all that apply, the Q&A app can be added past tense to a Teams meeting and allows you to do which of the following. So see if you can decide which of these options the Q&A app is going to allow you to do. So you have the option to ask questions or post announcements to the audience, dismiss comments to review them at a later time, post interactive quizzes, select a few users in the meeting and review those chats from an audience member before making it public. So which of those things do you think that the Q&A app allows you to do? I'm going to answer mine. And we should be able to see some responses real quick. See some changing their answers. That's great. They're still coming in, Dennison. There's a little bit of wavering on.
I can see.
I know this is a whole.
It's a toughie.
It's a whole new ball game with what this can do. We haven't had access to this before, and if you haven't used live events before, it's going to feel very unfamiliar using this Q&A app. So it is kind of interesting that we've got responses still coming in, but about 30% saying you can ask questions and post announcements in the audience. Is that correct, Dennison? Is that accurate? So you can ask, yeah, that one's right. So y'all got that one right. Dismiss comments to review them at a later time. You can do that as well. It does not unfriend them, so they don't get an alert if you dismiss a comment, so that you can come back to it. So nobody's feelings get hurt there. It just kind of might not be the time and place in the session to answer a particular question. So it's nice that you can dismiss it and still come back to it later. Post interactive quizzes. Can you do that with the Q&A app?
You know, I don't think you can. But there is an app that allows you to do that.
By golly, what is it, Dennison?
Oh man, it's the Polls app or the Forums app. It changes its name.
It does change its name. So yeah, the Polls app, which is what we use, it's just like a little Microsoft Forms, kind of a baby one. It's what we used in the session today to be able to have this interactive quiz. So if you want something like that, you can use polling of your audience. And then that last question is that you are able to select a few users in the meeting that can review those chats. So if you need somebody kind of filtering those comments beforehand, you are able to do that with the Q&A app. So that's great. Dennison, I have next on our list is that custom streaming to social platforms, that demo. And we're at the halfway point of our session. So I'm going to go check questions in the chat, and then I will let you resume to talk a little bit more about custom streaming.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So I still have this lovely screen up here ready to go. So what I want to go ahead and show you now is that custom streaming application. I may run through it a little bit fast, but as we said, we already have a lot of these resources that we have. We already have provided some of them, but I'm going to try to go through at a quick pace, but as well as not too fast. So just bear with me here. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go to apps. So it's the same way that we actually created or got the Q&A app. We're going to go here. So the next one is this custom streaming. Now you may see it slightly different to where it may say custom streaming app, and it may say preview next to it. My view is a little bit different, but for the most part is the exact same. So just want you to know that that's pretty much, if you see custom streaming preview or custom streaming, they're the exact same. So once you're here, as you can tell, it gives you these wonderful message. Essentially what this application does is it gives you the ability to really elevate your presentations and elevate your meetings. So as I spoke about before, Q&A allows you to reach people in a whole different manner. Well, this kind of just ones up that. So when you're in the custom streaming application, it allows you to stream your application, or I should really say your meeting, your Teams meeting or webinar to an audience outside of Teams. So if you have a YouTube channel, or you have Facebook, or you have Instagram, or any sort of social media platform that allows you to do live streaming, this application gives you the ability to do that. And so that's probably one of the things that makes it so powerful and so amazing, is that you have the ability to really get to a much broader audience than you could do before. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through this. So right now, as you see, you get this great welcome message. We're going to go ahead and hit save. You have to do this for every single application. And as this is the same as with the Q&A application, you want to do it while you're in the meeting. If you do it outside of the meeting, you'll probably run into some sort of setting issues or some sort of error. So do it inside of the meeting. I do understand that it makes it a little bit harder for if you're trying to do some sort of a presentation, similar to how we have it here, where you have to jump into the meeting to add the application and start the process. But I promise you, it works really well, and it's usually pretty quick. So we're going to go ahead and go through this process. So as you can see, there's a whole side panel now. So we've got this whole side panel, and it shows you a streaming URL and a key. So if anyone who is actually used to doing live streams and they're using some sort of encoder or something similar to that, you'll actually be very familiar with these two terms, a streaming URL and a stream key. But if you're not, that's perfectly fine. So I'm going to actually walk us through that. So if you say were a user who was trying to stream this to YouTube, we'll actually use YouTube as our example here. And I'm actually going to pop in real quick with my YouTube account that we can use for testing. So give me one moment here. And I'm going to go over. So what we're going to do is first, if you're on YouTube, right, you want to go to the YouTube Studio app, YouTube Studio spot. I'm actually using a test account, well, one that I actually use for my own personal use. But you want to go here, and quickest and easiest way is you want to hit that go live button that you kind of saw on the side. So now, once you're in here, you want to click into this portion. This is your live streaming portal in some ways. This allows you to get all of the necessary things for you to be able to ingest, essentially move it into this ingestion point here for your custom streaming application. So now that we're here, right, this is where that stream key is. So I'm going to go ahead and hit copy. And we're going to go ahead and paste it here. And then I'm going to go back, and then we're going to go ahead and copy this stream URL. So both of those are provided by the live streaming platform, or the platform that you want to live stream to, I should really say. So now we've got both our streaming URL and our stream key. We're going to go ahead and hit that. We're going to go ahead and hit start. And so this is what that's going to do, is it's going to confirm that, hey, you want to stream this meeting. Just that extra step just to make sure. So now it's going to go ahead and go through its cycle. Sometimes it takes a couple seconds for it to work. And hopefully it does have some hiccups at times, but usually it should go through. And we'll wait for a second. All right, so now we're actually starting to stream. So now that we've actually streamed, there's one more step. So now you're actually going to want to go back to your YouTube channel in this case, but if you were on some other platform, you want to go to that platform. But so we want to go here, and as you can see, I've got an excellent connection. So that's already a great sign. It's going to usually take a couple seconds for it to catch up, for YouTube or whichever streaming platform to catch up and grab that information that is being streamed from the Teams meeting. And so as you can see, it's going to take a couple seconds, right? And so I don't have anyone sharing, or I don't have my video going, but normally what this is actually showing is that it's the Teams meeting that we have here. It's mainly going to show your speakers first. It really wants someone to have some sort of video there. But once it pushes over, you'll actually have this whole space, which is really, really nice. And as you can see, YouTube's already trying to push me to do it. But there's this whole go live. So that's the last part of this streaming portion. So once you hit go live, you have now just started your first stream directly through Teams, which is really, really amazing. And trying to stream a Teams meeting beforehand has been such a task in multiple ways. So there's always a lot of different platforms that you can use to do the exact same thing, but it's so amazing that Microsoft has given us the ability to be able to stream our actual meetings automatically, right? Directly through Teams instead of having to go through some sort of third party. And the other thing that you want to kind of always notice too here is when you're streaming, a lot of it is very dependent on your internet connection. It's very, very dependent on your upload connection and your upload speeds. So right now, see, it's getting a little bit low, but it's also because there's not much video or not much motion or anything like that going on in the meeting itself. So you'll get something from YouTube or whichever third-party application that you're streaming to will say like, hey, there may not be enough speed or something similar to that. And so at that point, that's when you want to try to mitigate some of those efforts. But a lot of that information will be displayed on the application or the location that you're going to be streaming to. So that is something that you want to be very much informed of, or just watching and stuff like that. And I'm showing YouTube just because that tends to be probably one of the most requested ones. Plus, it's something that I tend to use a lot. But you can, like I said, stream this to like Facebook or say Instagram or other platforms that allows streaming to their platforms. The other thing that I want to also talk about is when we want to end our stream. So best case scenario or best practices is for you to actually end your live stream first here, right? So if I were to say live, you would actually see a big button that would say, it would be a big red button that would say end stream. You want to click the end stream button, and that will end it for your actual YouTube or your YouTube in this specific case. But if it was Facebook, the same thing. That would end your actual stream. Now, that doesn't mean that your streaming application is stopping, but it is ending that stream. So once it's ended there, then you can hit this stop streaming and it'll go ahead and stop the streaming process. The whole point of doing it that way, streaming or ending it on the streaming platform first and then here, is so that way there's not that weird disconnect, because just because the streaming stops here doesn't mean that you're actually not still live on the streaming platform. So end it on the streaming platform and then go ahead and end it here. Once you're done, you're in good shape, and you actually now have your meeting in two places, right? Not just Teams, but also on whatever third-party platform you're on. And with that, I know that was a lot of information, but I want to go ahead and hand it back over to Amanda so that she can tell me if there are any questions. I know this is a lot, so are there any questions that might have come up with this?
Negative. We have no questions at this time. So other than the ones that we answered in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next segment, which is going to show you the walkie-talkie option that is available now in the mobile app. This is, again, we're going to just do just the mobile app. And because that's a little bit harder, we can't show that as easily on screen. We've pre-recorded it. We did test it a few times. Sometimes the video comes across as a little bit choppy. If that should occur, it's a short little segment. And if it should occur, we're going to follow up with the email tomorrow and make sure you get that link to it on YouTube as well. So don't worry. My upload speed's really good. My daughter just jumped on Minecraft, so it's not really helping our chances. But if your internet is wavering, then you're also going to receive kind of a lower quality of this video. So let me pull it up and we'll just try and see if we can make the most out of it so that you're able to view this. Just one moment. Of course, it goes away and everything hides. All right, Dennison, if you'll just give me confirmation that audio sharing.
A brand new communication feature that you just got to try.
Thanks.
It's called walkie-talkie. Now, it sounds a little bit old school, but I promise you that we're actually bringing it into the new school when it comes to Teams. So what this is it's an application that allows you to do instant communication with anyone who is inside of a specific team and channel. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen on my phone. So all of this is happening on your phone. Currently, walkie-talkie is only available on your phone, on your mobile device. So right now you actually are seeing my phone screen. I'm going to actually go ahead and move outside of this team meeting. And we're going to go over to our full walkie-talkie application. So this is what the walkie-talkie application looks like. Now I'm going to show you how to get to it real quick. So first, you may see it somewhere on these bottom rows. So there's a bottom row here with your chat, your calendar, and your Teams, as well as calls. If you don't see it there, then you want to hit this More button, which is where you see these three little dots, and then you want to go to walkie-talkie. So now we're going to go ahead and hit walkie-talkie. Since we're already in there, there's really no need for us to do much more. But once we're in walkie-talkie, you'll notice a few things. So first, you already see that you're in the application by saying the walkie-talkie here. It will tell you the channel that you're in, which is that top top part, and then the bottom part, which is a little bit smaller, is going to show you what team that you're in. You can actually change the team that you're in by simply going to the button there, which is where you can click on your channel, and then you can select from any of the teams or channels that you're a part of. Now you have to remember that this is only possible. You're only able to start a walkie-talkie conversation inside of a channel, or I should really say inside of a team, inside of a channel. So you have to be a part of a certain team and a certain channel for you to be able to communicate. It can be in any channel inside of the team, but you do have to pick a specific one. So I can't actually just pick OIT test team, as you see here. I actually have to go in and click on the walkie-talkie channel. Again, it doesn't have to be a specific channel, but I just have this one labeled here just for testing. So once you're inside of the channel, the next thing that you want to do is you want to hit connect. So once you hit connect, as you can see here, you're already connected to, it pulls you into the walkie-talkie portion of the actual channel. And you can also see that there's only one person in this channel currently. That can also change, and you can also see who all is in the channel by clicking that person there. But that can change by sending out a Teams message or something like that, saying, hey guys, I want to send out an announcement, a quick announcement without having to do any sort of video message or something like that. A quick announcement that can be listened to when someone joins the channel on their walkie-talkie application inside Teams. So once you're here, the next thing that you want to do is, and you want to go ahead and start your communication, you just go ahead and press and hold this microphone button. It'll record your voice, and then you'll let go, and it'll send it out, just like a walkie-talkie. Now, a few caveats that you have to remember and you have to think about when you are doing this is your walkie-talkie is only, people can only essentially hear what's going on, since it's instantaneous, is that they have to be in the channel. So if someone is not in the channel at that current moment when you send out that message, they won't be able to get it. And it doesn't really record it in a way to where someone can listen back to it. It's just a quick recording, and then it sends it out instantly. So that is something that you do have to worry about. So if you do want to make a very big, important message, you want to make sure that they are able to that they are actually in the channel that you want them to be in. The other caveat is that you do have to make sure that you are fully in it. You don't want to be in a point to where you're outside, like say this portion, and connect. The other thing too is when you're on this screen here, you actually, as you notice, you can't actually see who is actually in the walkie-talkie channel. So you would have to move inside of the walkie-talkie channel to be able to actually see users who are inside and who will be able to actually listen to you or listen to your message that you send out. So as you can see too, I actually clicked the little button and it actually says that I'm not in the channel. It's a really quick reminder that Teams gives you to help you understand the situation that you are or what screen that you're in to make sure that you don't forget. With that, that's all we have.
Awesome. I hope that was clear enough to everybody and that it wasn't too choppy coming through. We certainly wanted to make that as an easy way. And let's all just take a moment and appreciate the chat bubbles, because that made my day. Dennison, if you want to go ahead, I think one of the last things on our list here was to go over that pre-assigning external guest into breakout rooms and how to pull that list. As you're getting your stuff pulled up, I was going to do one more quick raised hand. I'm just curious, how many people by raise of hand, have you used breakout rooms before? I'm very curious. I love it. I think it's an excellent, easy tool, and we have a whole nother training on it if you're not familiar with how to use it. Okay, so really, Dennison, only about a third of our audience has ever even used breakout rooms. So just real quick, if you're unfamiliar, it is just literally just the same thing as in person. If you need to go to a separate space and have a little team meeting, have your students work on a project, or just have those like conference room conversations, you can do that in Teams as well. So Dennison, I'll turn it over to you to talk a little bit about those external guests.
Of course. Thank you, Amanda. So, as we all know, if you do have an opportunity to create these breakout rooms in your meetings, the biggest, probably one of the biggest headaches that you probably have seen is when you have external guests. And you really need to assign them to a breakout room for whatever's going on. Well, you can now do that within Teams. Now, of course, again, this is a public preview feature. And it's actually in the very, very early stages of it. So that means that it may still be rolling out to you as we speak. It's slowly coming through. But just to go over really quickly, it's the same as you can do pre-assignments, and that's actually the biggest thing. It's all through pre-assignments. So easiest way to do that is you go to your team meeting right here, right? So you're going to go to that specific team meeting. You're going to go over to the breakout rooms tab. Once you're in the breakout rooms tab, you're going to wait for it because it loves to take a little while, just like Teams. But once you're there, you're going to actually see all of your wonderful rooms that you've created. As you can see, I've already pre-created these rooms, but if you need to, you can always create more by hitting this plus over here. Once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and move over to our rooms. So there, as you can see, there's two rooms, and we're going to go ahead and do assignment. So you could do automatic assignments if you want, but you can also do a manual assignment. And so the biggest thing that you see right here is, as you can see, there's two users, but this user right here is a guest user. And now it allows me to actually select them and assign them to whichever room I want them to go to. So if I want this guest user to be in room 2 while I want this other user to be in room 1, I can do that now. We're going to go ahead and do that. And so as you can see, it's going through its process, and it's going to go ahead and assign them to the appropriate rooms. And once they're in those rooms, or I should really say once the meeting starts and they're in those rooms, the amazing thing about that is that another feature that is also coming, it's in the process of making it through the public preview, is that it will eventually give you the opportunity to be able to get the attendance reports from those rooms the same way that you get attendance reports nowadays, which is both through the chat and the attendance reports that you can get through this attendance tab. And of course, you can check and choose the specific dates and times and stuff like that. The other cool thing about it is, too, when you click on this person, you can actually get a really good idea of what happens here. So this is also another big feature here. So you can actually see that this person jumped in, they jumped into the main room, they moved into this other room, and now they've left. So that is the amazing thing that happens with your breakout rooms. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Amanda. I know it was a little bit quick, but it's just that extra added functionality.
Dennison, I'm going to go ahead and just pull up that final video because I think we have time. While I do that, do you mind just checking the chat to see if there was any additional questions? I think we're good, but I'll have you look while I grab this.
Of course. Let's see.
No questions? Is it a really quiet group today?
It looks like a pretty quiet group. Actually, it does look like there is one. So okay. It's let's see, it's walkie-talkies before your, so if you need to first communicate that, sorry, let me read this really quickly. So let's see.
I'll share the video, and if you want to reply to that one, since we have the video is 5 minutes, we have 5 minutes, y'all. We're just like neck and neck. We got a little bit of a delayed start, but I'm going to go ahead and share this. because we did talk a little bit about the custom screen sharing options, the side-by-side, the reporter mode. This is going to go a little bit in that and even more in depth of how you can adjust that setting. I'm really excited about it, so I'll let y'all watch and learn. By now, I think we're all pretty familiar with being in a Teams meeting and sharing content. You know to navigate to the top of your screen and select Share, but a few underutilized tools I want to highlight. Depending on how you want to present your content, you have a few viewpoints where you can either stand out in front of that content, have it side by side with your presenter, or have it up and smaller to the side and you down lower. There's a few of these options. And if you're familiar with sharing, then you know that a lot of times when you share that content, you may not be the appropriate size. So you have the option of leaning way back and trying to resize yourself, or now in Teams, you can customize the size of yourself and the size of slides to ensure that everyone can see your content and adjust it based on the design of your slides. To demonstrate this, I'm going to select side by side and share my slides. It's going to transition me into a different window, so I'm popping myself back up. This is the preview that you get when you're doing that mode. It's going to cut out your background, so you're seeing a preview of what I am seeing. I'm going to now pull the little side panel screen that also pops up. So you're going to be seeing a lot of me, folks. Here's the little side panel that I want to call attention to. When you're in a Teams meeting, this is what your audience would be seeing of you. You sharing your slides. Here is what I, as the presenter, am seeing and sharing my slides on a different screen. I know it's a lot to take in, but we're going to look at what the audience is seeing here and show you how you can make those adjustments without having to lean or lean in into your screen. So you'll see here, this is the size. Let's say you have a lot of heavy content and you really just want to stand out a little bit in front of your slides. You're able to adjust your size based on your content, whatever information you're sharing. Let's say that on this side, you have a lot of content or graphics and being positioned on this side is blocking it. You're able to adjust your position with just that slight click. So you can modify your sizing. But let's say maybe you don't really like this mode. You want to try a different one. You're able to use this feature regardless of which mode you select. Sorry, it jumps me back and forth. So now we're going to see, this is side by side, so you're not going to see the black cutout behind me because you're still going to see my background. You can still adjust, this is your audience view. You can adjust the view for your audience still by resizing your content versus the speaker. And you can also flip sides so that if you're needing to point at something, you can adjust that at any time. And you don't have to stick with this while you're presenting. You can jump back and forth depending on your content and depending on that layout. So just to make sure that we cover all of our bases, I'm going to go ahead and select that reporter view so you can see the adjustments that you can make there as well. You travel back through time and space. Excellent. So you'll see again, because I'm in reporter, it's removing that background for me. Here is my preview so that I can determine how I want to be presented to the audience. Here you'll see again that positioning can be adjusted based on where you want your audience viewing your content. And you can adjust that sizing. If there's something on the screen that needs to be called out and to make better attention to it so that you can enhance what the viewers are seeing, you can zoom out of yourself. And then when that content takes lower priority, you can make those adjustments. Excellent. I just wanted to be able to show you those tools because it's a great way to now customize how you're sharing your screen. We're not limited to just sharing that full screen and having you appear as a small box. You can actually be with your content and have that unification so that your audience is clearly understanding what you're demonstrating. Hope you like these options. I can't wait to hear which view you're going to choose. Wonderful. Thank you all. I hope now, after seeing some of these new tools and techniques, that you do feel like we can do it. By working together, we can share this technology and empower each other. I'm always curious to hear how you choose to employ and leverage these new skills because everybody does it differently. And I think that's what makes this so great and so unique. We've gone ahead and posted a link in the chat for just a quick survey. It really does help us to know how we do in the planning of these sessions to ensure that we're bringing you information that's relevant and impactful for your job, as well as just insightful so you know what tools are in your tool belt. Thank you all for attending, for your attention today. If you have any lasting questions, feel free to put it in the chat. We do have a QR code, a link that you can type if you want to type it out, and a link in the chat. Just remember, y'all, we are stronger together, and through working together, we can do it. We can do IT because we have each other. If you need us, know that we're always here to help. Thank you for attending.
Come fly with me, let's fly away. If you